My name is Marisa Trent, and I'm 34 years old. If you walked into my life on an ordinary Thursday, you'd probably think I'm the least dramatic person on earth. My kitchen counters are clean, my bills are set to autopay, and my idea of a wild night is ordering a second slice of pie at the diner down the street. My credit score is boring, my wardrobe is boring, my evenings are boring. And until recently, I thought boring meant safe. My story starts with a barbecue last summer, one of those backyard things where the potato salad sweats in plastic bowls and somebody's cousin is in charge of the playlist. That's where I met Dylan Cross. He was the opposite of boring. Tall, easy smile, ring-light tan lines on his cheeks from filming under artificial suns. He wore a shirt with some minimalist logo I'd never heard of and talked about content strategy, the way other people talk about their favorite TV shows. We were introduced over a tray of slightly burnt burgers. "This is Dylan," my friend Gabe said. "He does social media stuff, and this is Marissa. She does spreadsheets." "I manage budgets," I corrected, but Dylan just laughed. "Budgets, content, it's all storytelling," he said, like that made sense. "You on Instagram?" "Not really," I replied. "I have an account, but I mostly use it to stalk my nieces." He clutched his chest dramatically. "A civilian. I didn't know they still made those." I should have taken that as a warning. Instead, I fell for his charm in slow increments, the way he remembered small things I said, the way he pretended to be fascinated by my color-coded grocery list, the way he talked about growing up broke and promising himself that one day he'd have a life that looked like the ones on the Explore page. We started dating. Coffee dates turned into dinners. Dinners turned into weekends. Weekends turned into toothbrushes in each other's bathrooms, and his hoodie quietly taking up space on my coat rack. About 3 months in, I walked into his apartment for the first time. It was in one of those trendy neighborhoods where the rent is basically a hate crime. Exposed brick, tall windows, plants hanging from the ceiling in macrame slings. There was a neon sign on the wall that said, "Good vibes only," and I had to physically bite my tongue. "Wow," I said instead, setting my tote bag down carefully. "This is nice." "It photographs well," he said, and that was what mattered. My followers love the natural light. His followers, 15,000 people who watched him taste test oat milk lattes and rate brunch spots and talk about intentional living. I didn't fully understand it, but he did, and he seemed happy. That counted for something. A few weeks after that, we were sitting on my couch, a movie paused, on some dramatic mid-punch scene, when he sighed and rubbed his face. "I'm screwed," he said. I muted the TV. "What's going on?" He stared at the floor like it owed him an apology. "Rent. Brand deals have been slow. The algorithm's killing me. I shouldn't have signed such an expensive lease, but the location is everything. The building, the coffee shops nearby, the roof deck, that's my brand. If I move to some basic complex in the suburbs, my engagement will tank." I know my face said what my mouth didn't, because what I wanted to say was, "You're 29, not a Fortune 500 company." But he looked genuinely stressed. Shoulders hunched the way I'd seen my clients look when they realized they'd overspent their budget by 5 digits. "How far behind are you?" I asked instead. "I'm not behind. Yet." He swallowed. "But if I can't cover the next few months, I will be. I just need some time to ramp up. I've got some sponsorships in the pipeline." The word pipeline did a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. I looked at him and thought about my savings account, about the boring security I'd built cell by cell in my spreadsheet, about growing up watching my mom panic over late fees and promising myself I'd never live like that again. "When's rent due?" I asked. 5 days. His voice was small. "If I lose that apartment, I lose momentum. I can't go back to living with roommates, Mar. It'll kill my image." Image, momentum, brand. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I can help, for now. I'll cover your rent until you catch up. We'll treat it like temporary scaffolding." He blinked at me. "Are you serious?" "Yeah, I can afford it. Just don't make me regret it." He grabbed me, kissed my forehead, my cheeks, my mouth, laughing into my skin. "You're amazing. I'll pay you back, I swear, as soon as things pick up." I nodded, even though he hadn't asked if I needed it back. I set up an automatic transfer to his landlord's account, $12,200 every month, labeled it Dylan Rent in my banking app, and tucked the discomfort into a mental drawer. For 6 months, I paid his rent. I never mentioned it in arguments, never joked about it in front of friends, never threw it in his face when he bought a new pair of sneakers for content. I simply handled it, quietly, because that's what you do when you care about someone. At least that's what I thought. Then came the Tuesday lunch break. I was at my desk, salad in one hand, phone in the other, half reading an email when a notification popped up. Dylan Cross Live just started a live video. I clicked without thinking. Habit more than curiosity. There he was, propped up on his carefully curated couch, ring light glowing, hair styled in those effortless waves that take 20 minutes and 3 products. The little viewer count ticked up. About 200 people were watching. So yeah, that's the new coffee place I've been obsessed with, he was saying. They just get the aesthetic. A question popped up on screen. What's your girlfriend like? He read it aloud and laughed. Not the laugh he used with me. The performance laugh, stretched wider, shinier. She's sweet, he said. Like really sweet. But honestly, she's got this cheap lifestyle that's kind of embarrassing sometimes. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Another comment scrolled up. Cheap how? Dylan shrugged, settling back into the cushions I paid for indirectly. I mean, my ex, Sabrina, she used to take me to, actual nice places, rooftop bars, tasting menus, weekend trips. She knew how to live. This one, we go to diners, and she thinks that's romantic. The chat exploded with laughing emojis. I sat there, my heart pounding in my throat, listening to him rewrite my frugality as a personality flaw. Someone typed, "So why are you with her then?" He read it. Smirked. I don't know. I'm figuring it out. She's nice, But I'm used to a certain standard. I don't think I should have to lower my expectations just because someone isn't where they need to be financially. I stared at my phone. At the apartment I'd been quietly funding. At the man I'd been quietly supporting. Telling 200 strangers I was beneath him. Cheap. Embarrassing. My chest tightened. My face went hot. The sound faded like I was underwater. For a moment, I considered just closing the app, pretending I'd never seen it, putting this hurt into another drawer and slamming it shut. Instead, my thumbs moved on their own. I typed, "Funny, considering I've been covering your rent for 6 months." No emojis, no caps, just the sentence. I hit send. On the screen, I watched his gaze flick down to the comments section, the way it always did. I watched his eyes land on my username, then on my words. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost comical. He stopped mid-sentence. The chat went wild. Wait, what? Is that true? Yo? Expose him, queen. 10 seconds later, the live ended. My phone started vibrating almost immediately. Dylan calling, then texting, then calling again. The bubble of humiliation in my chest hardened into something else, something colder. I turned my phone face down, finished my now tasteless salad, and went back to work. By the time I drove home that evening, I'd had over 50 missed notifications from him. I ignored them all. The more my phone lit up, the calmer I felt. Anger does that sometimes. It burns so hot it leaves ice. At 8 p.m. sharp, there was a knock at my door. I'd been expecting it. I opened it to find Dylan on my doorstep wearing the vintage denim jacket I'd bought him for his birthday, the one he'd posted in with the caption "self-made." "What the hell was that?" he demanded, stepping past me without waiting to be invited in. I closed the door carefully behind him. "What was what?" "That comment." He spun around to face me. "You humiliated me in front of my followers." I stared at him for a beat. "You humiliated me in front of your followers first." "I wasn't humiliating you." His arms crossed, his default defensive pose. "I was just being honest, authentic. My audience appreciates that. It's literally my brand." "So you calling my lifestyle cheap? Saying you're settling? Saying your ex treated you better?" I raised an eyebrow. "That's your brand now?" He flinched, but recovered quickly. "It's content. Drama gets engagement. You know this. It wasn't that deep." "It was deep enough to cut," I said quietly. "And my comment was authentic too. I've been paying your rent since March. Why shouldn't your followers know the whole story?" "That was private," he snapped. "You made me look like a leech." "If the shoe fits," I said. His eyes flashed. "Wow. So you've been keeping score this whole time?" "No," I said, "but apparently you have. You just did yours out loud, with an audience." He paced my living room, hands in his hair. "You just tanked my reputation. Brands are going to see that. People are dragging me on Twitter." "Maybe you shouldn't have trashed the person bankrolling your apartment," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Steady, almost detached. He stopped pacing, narrowed his eyes. "Okay, fine. I messed up. I shouldn't have said it like that. But you know I've been stressed. Rent's due in 2 days, and I'm done," I cut in. He blinked. "Done what?" "Done paying it." I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened my banking app. The line that said, "Dylan Rent, $1,200. stared back at me. I'm canceling the transfer. His tears, which had been threatening at the corners of his eyes, vanished like someone flipped a switch. You can't do that. I don't have the money right now. You should have thought about that before you went live and explained to the world how I don't meet your standard, I said. I'm not your safety net, Dylan. I'm not your sponsor. He stepped closer, softening his face. Mar, come on. Don't do this. We can fix it. I'll apologize on stream if you want. I'll tell them I exaggerated. I looked at him, really looked, and saw not my boyfriend, but a man calculating angles, gauging optics. No, I said. What I want is to stop financing someone who thinks I'm an embarrassment. His jaw tightened. So you're going to ruin me over one mistake? I didn't ruin you, I replied. You hit go live all by yourself. I opened the settings on the transfer. My thumb hovered over the cancel automatic payment button. For a second, I thought of those 6 months, $7,200, quietly leaving my account so his life could look more expensive than it was. Of all the times he'd called my favorite diner, low effort. Then I hit cancel. In that tiny silent click, something huge shifted. Not just my budget, not just his rent. The story I'd been telling myself about who we were to each other started to crack. Stop, he said, as if I could rewind the last 3 seconds. You don't understand what you've just done. Oh, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm starting to. The next morning, my phone looked like it had been in a small car accident. Missed calls, unread texts, notifications stacked in red badges across every app. I stared at the lock screen while I brushed my teeth, watching Dylan's name repeat like a glitch. I didn't open a single one. I showered, dressed, made coffee like it was any other Wednesday. That was the strangest part. How normal the world looked, while my relationship sat in pieces in my notifications bar. On the way to work, my group chat with some of Dylan's friends lit up. Lena, seriously, Marissa? Blasting him like that? Not cool. Matt, you didn't have to humiliate him on live, dude. Lena, you're trying to ruin his career over one slip-up. That's petty. I stared at the screen at a red light, thumb hovering. I typed back. You all watched him call me cheap and say he was settling. None of you thought that was petty? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back. Then, Lena, he was just talking. That's content. You made it personal. I locked my phone, tossed it into my bag, and merged back into traffic before I could say something I'd regret. At my desk, I tried to bury myself in work. Spreadsheets made sense. They didn't lie. They didn't perform one thing and mean another. They just added up or they didn't. Around 11, my phone buzzed with a name that didn't usually appear in daylight hours. Gabe, I answered. Aren't you supposed to be pretending to be busy right now? He didn't even bother with hello. You know you're trending, right? My stomach dropped. Please tell me that's a joke. I wish, he said. I could hear keyboards clacking in the background, office air conditioning humming. Someone screen recorded Dylan's live. Your comment, his face, the whole train wreck. It's on Twitter, TikTok, probably on Mars by now. I sank back in my chair. You're kidding. I'm not. I'm sending you the link. But listen, before you freak out, most people are on your side. A notification popped up as we spoke. I opened the video with the sound off. There I was, as a tiny username at the bottom of Dylan's curated world. Marissa Trent. Funny considering I've been covering your rent for 6 months. Even on mute, you could see the exact second his confidence curdled into panic. What are they saying? I asked. Half the internet thinks you're a legend. The other half thinks you're cold for pulling the plug. Classic discourse. He sighed. But the general vibe is, he had it coming. I watched comment after comment scroll by under the repost. Imagine talking down on the person paying your rent. Influencer math. My money is my money, and her money is our money. She didn't embarrass him. She just turned the lights on. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. This was supposed to be a relationship, I said quietly, not public content. Yeah, well, Gabe replied, you dated a man who thinks in engagement metrics. That part's on you. He wasn't wrong. After we hung up, I deleted Instagram from my phone. The little icon shook, then vanished. It felt like pulling out a splinter. For a few hours, things were mercifully quiet. I answered emails, reviewed budgets, explained basic arithmetic to a client who made triple my salary. For brief stretches, I forgot there were thousands of strangers replaying my worst moment on their lunch breaks. Then, around 3 p.m., my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I let those go to voicemail. This time, I answered. Hello? Is this Marissa? a woman's voice asked. Mid-30s, maybe. Calm, but with a weird tension underneath. It is. Who's this? There was a pause. My name is Sabrina. I'm Dylan's ex. I sat up straighter. The name clicked into place like a puzzle piece I'd been chewing on for days. The ex he always mentioned. The one with the standard I apparently couldn't live up to. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Okay, I said slowly. How did you get my number? Mutuals, she said. I saw the clip. I know this is weird. She blew out a breath. I figured someone should tell you the part he leaves out. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling tiles. I'm listening. You know how he talks about our relationship? She asked. All the designer stuff, the fancy restaurants, the luxury trips. Yeah, I said. I could hear his voice in my head. Sabrina used to spoil me. She understood quality. It's mostly fiction, she said flatly. I bought him one bag for his birthday. We did a couple of nice dinners when I got a bonus. That's it. The rest is exaggerated for the story. He's been spinning it for a year. A bitter laugh escaped me. So I'm getting dragged online for not living up to a fairy tale. Pretty much. Sabrina hesitated. The reality? He kept pushing for stuff I couldn't afford. Weekend getaways, expensive hotels for the content. When I told him no, he started making these little comments about how I didn't believe in his dream. The words sounded familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Let me guess, I said. You weren't supportive enough. Bingo. I could hear her shifting the phone. We broke up because I wouldn't keep bleeding my savings for his feed. He still owes me almost $2,000 he borrowed for some equipment he never bought. When I asked about it, he accused me of nickel and diming him. I rubbed my forehead. $2,000. My mind did the math automatically. Add that to my $7,200, and you get a picture. Dylan's lifestyle wasn't self-made. It was crowdfunded by women he called cheap when their wallets closed. Look, Sabrina said, I don't want anything from you. I'm not trying to team up and hate follow him. When I saw your comment, I recognized the pattern. I wish someone had warned me. I swallowed. There was a part of me that wanted to stay on the phone, trade war stories. Another part wanted to throw the phone across the room and scream. Thank you, I said instead, for calling. I'm sorry he did that to you. I'm sorry he did it to you, she replied. At least you got out before he started rewriting the narrative completely. He's really good at that. I'm seeing that, I murmured. One more thing, she said. He cares more about losing the lifestyle than losing the relationship. Don't let him guilt you into thinking it's the other way around. The line went quiet for a breath. Duly noted, I said. We hung up. For a few minutes, I just sat there, phone face down on my desk, listening to the hum of the office. The fluorescent lights flickered in the corner like a cliché. I thought about Dylan's apartment, the one I was paying for. The lease that, in a moment of early relationship optimism, I had agreed to co-sign because the landlord is picky and it's just a formality, babe. I'd signed my name on thick cream paper at a conference table that smelled like coffee and desperation. Dylan had squeezed my hand and whispered, "You have no idea how much this means to me," like I was giving him a kidney. Back then, it had felt like partnership. Now, suddenly, I could see the trap. My name tied to his choices, my credit lashed to his ring light. A message from an unknown number buzzed on my screen. Another stranger, probably, with an opinion about my life. I ignored it. I opened my banking app instead, scrolling past the now canceled Dylan rent line. My account looked lighter. Like a room after you take an old piece of furniture out. I'd thought the worst part of this would be the public humiliation. Being the woman everyone whispered about, the one whose boyfriend called her cheap and got exposed. But sitting there, phone heavy in my hand, I realized Sabrina was right. The real danger wasn't the comments section. It was the signature I'd put next to his on a lease he couldn't afford without me. He'd already turned my love into content. Now I had to make sure he didn't turn my name into collateral. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message from Gabe. Gabe, he's live again. You need to see this. I'm recording it for you. I sighed. I had deleted Instagram, but trouble has a way of finding the people who try hardest to avoid it. A minute later, my phone lit up with video files, screen recordings, each only about 20 seconds long, but I could already picture the scene. Dylan, perfectly angled lighting, emotions arranged like props. I opened the first clip. He was crying. Not the quiet, ugly crying people do when grief blindsides them, but the glossy, high-resolution kind influencers produce when they need to connect with their audience. Soft lighting. a carefully placed houseplant blurred in the background. Mascara smudged just enough to look raw, not messy. "I don't know what I'm going to do," he said between shaky breaths. "Marissa just cut me off completely, out of nowhere, no warning. I don't know how I'm supposed to pay rent. I might have to move back in with my parents. This is so humiliating." My jaw clenched. Out of nowhere, no warning. My thumb hovered over the screen, pausing the video. For a moment, I just stared at his face. So earnest, so pleading. And I remembered the same expressions whispered privately in my kitchen on late-night calls. Back then, I had mistaken them for intimacy, not strategy. I unpaused. The comments section was a fast-moving river of emojis and arguments. "You poor thing, stay strong." "She didn't have to do you like that." "Girl, he literally insulted her first?" "Isn't this the guy who said she was cheap?" "Whose name is the lease under?" That last comment froze Dylan mid-sniffle. He blinked rapidly, eyes darting across the screen. It's under. Another comment flashed. "Show the lease then." "Prove she's overreacting." Dylan swallowed hard. For reasons only he could understand, and none of them good, he actually pulled up his lease on his phone while still recording. He angled the screen toward the camera. And then it happened. I watched his face change in real time. Confusion, realization, panic. The progression took maybe 2 seconds. "Oh," he whispered. "Oh, wait." He zoomed in. My name glowed on the screen in crisp black ink. Marissa Trent, co-signer, primary responsible party. His breathing changed. The shaky theatrics vanished. Fear snatched the spotlight. I need to check something," he stammered, and for once, he wasn't performing. The live ended abruptly. 5 seconds later, my phone vibrated. "Dylan, call me now. This is serious, please." Then a call. Another. By the 6th attempt, he'd switched to voicemail, voice cracked and frantic. "Marissa, please, we need to talk about the lease. I didn't realize. This isn't funny. You need to call me back, please, please." I let it sit until the notifications stopped buzzing like angry hornets. Then I replied with one text. "I'm not kicking you out, but I'm not paying your rent. You're responsible for your own bills." The typing bubble appeared instantly. "Dylan, that's the same thing. If you don't pay, I get evicted." "Me, adults pay their own bills, Dylan." "Dylan, you know I can't afford this place on my own. You can't just abandon me like this." Abandon him. That word burned. He hadn't said the same when he called me cheap to hundreds of strangers. "Me, you should have thought about that before your live stream." The typing bubble flickered, vanished, returned. "Dylan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. We both said things we didn't mean. Can we just reset and talk?" My finger hovered. I wanted to say I deserved better. I wanted to say he needed to learn. I wanted to say so many things. But instead, "Me, talk to the apartment manager. They can help you figure it out." It took almost a whole minute for his next reply. "Dylan, what do you want? A public apology? Fine, I'll post one." There it was, the misunderstanding that had been the backbone of our relationship. He thought this was about optics. I thought this was about respect. "Me, I don't want anything from you. I'm stepping off the lease. It's your responsibility now." The reply came instantly. "Dylan, you can't do that. That's illegal. You'll ruin both our credit scores." "Me, call the manager. Figure it out." He didn't reply again. But the silence wasn't relief. It was pressure. Something in my chest tightened, a weight that had been building for months. That lease, my signature, was an anchor tied to someone who couldn't swim without someone else's arm around him. I had warned him I was done holding him up. What I didn't realize until Sabrina's call, until the live stream meltdown, until this moment, was that he wasn't planning on swimming at all. He expected me to drown with him. Around 7 p.m., I set my phone down and stepped away. The walls of my apartment looked unfamiliar, like I'd moved without knowing it. I kept replaying Sabrina's words in my head. He cares more about losing the lifestyle than losing the relationship. And now that I had cut the cord, I was about to see exactly what he was willing to do to keep the lifestyle. By Saturday morning, the situation had evolved from messy breakup to legal liability waiting to detonate. My phone showed 12 missed calls from Dylan, 27 texts, and 1 voicemail from the apartment complex office, something about next month's rent. That last notification made my stomach drop. This wasn't just emotional now, it was financial. It was my credit score, my name, my future ability to sign a lease anywhere else. I called the complex manager back before I even made coffee. "Hi, this is Marissa Trent. I'm calling about the lease for Unit 3B. The manager's voice was warm but brisk. "Ah, yes. Thanks for calling back. We've left a few messages." "I need my name off the lease," I said. A pause. not judgmental, just the kind someone takes right before delivering unpleasant information. Well, Ms. Trent, we can process a lease modification, but we'll need both tenants' signatures, and the remaining tenant must meet qualification requirements. Meaning, he'll need to pass a credit check and income verification on his own. If he can't qualify, he'll need a co-signer, otherwise the unit has to be vacated. Relief and dread collided so hard in my chest it felt like whiplash. How soon would he need to do that, I asked. By the end of next month. If he fails to qualify, the lease terminates. I exhaled slowly. Send me whatever forms I need. I'll email them today. Just be aware, if he doesn't handle this properly, it could affect both of your credit scores. I'll take that risk, I said, and I hung up. The moment the call ended, I felt lighter. Not free, not yet, but like I'd finally reached the door after months of walking down the wrong hallway. I sent Dylan one message. Me. I contacted the manager. I'm coming off the lease. Their number is below. Handle your living situation ASAP. I didn't expect him to respond so fast. My phone rang immediately. I answered only because I knew if I didn't, he'd show up at my door. Are you serious? Dylan's voice cracked with panic. You're really doing this? You gave me no choice, I said. I'm not staying tied to a lease you can't afford. You're blowing this out of proportion. I'm cleaning up a mess I should never have co-signed for. Silence, then sharply. You're ruining my life. I'm saving mine. That's dramatic, he snapped. You went on Instagram and told thousands of people I was cheap and beneath your standard, I said, voice steady. And you did it from an apartment I paid for. Dramatic doesn't even cover it. His tone shifted instantly, soft, wounded, strategic. I thought you loved me, he said quietly. I closed my eyes. Love. Past tense. A word he used like a bargaining chip. I did, I said softly. And you treated my support like background music. Something to talk over. You don't understand how stressed I was. No, I cut in. I understand perfectly. You needed money. I had money. You needed an aesthetic apartment. I co-signed. You wanted to impress your followers. So you mocked me to look good. You used me, Dylan. That's not fair, he said, voice rising. I apologized. No, you didn't. You posted a manipulative story about people weaponizing generosity. That's not an apology. That's branding. Another beat of breathless silence. Then desperately, okay, fine, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I was being an ass. I was stressed. I was stupid. I shouldn't have said any of that. Just please, can you pay this 1 month's rent so I can figure things out? There it was, the real reason for the call. I'm not paying another cent, I said. You don't get it, he insisted. If you don't, I'll be evicted. I'll lose the apartment. I'll lose followers. Brands will drop me. Everything I've built. Everything I paid for, I corrected. That's cruel, he said. You're being cruel. No, I replied calmly. I'm being done. His breathing quickened. Marisa, be reasonable. I can't move back in with my parents. That'll kill my image. Then adapt your image, I said. Or get a roommate, or a job that isn't dependent on lighting angles. You're punishing me. You hurt me, I said simply. This is me walking away. He scrambled for a new tactic. What if I posted a public apology? He said. Would that help? I'll make it clear you're amazing, that it was all my fault. I almost laughed. Dylan, I said, you still think this is about optics. A long pause. Then a final swing. What if we try again, he whispered. We can fix this. You and me. I miss you. I miss us. The words were soft, familiar. They used to melt me. Now they felt like recycled scripts. We can't fix something you never valued, I said. Goodbye, Dylan. Wait, Mark, please. I hung up. Then I blocked him. Phone, email, social apps, everything. An hour later, the manager emailed the paperwork. I signed it electronically, my hand barely shaking. The moment I hit submit, something unlatched inside me. It wasn't joy, not yet. It was release, a buoy rising to the surface after months underwater. I stood by my window, watching the late afternoon sunlight stretch across my floor, and realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of his reaction. Not of the lease. Not of the fallout. I had cut the cord. And for the first time in a long time, my life was no longer tied to someone else's performance. 6 weeks passed. Not quietly, nothing about Dylan ever ended quietly, but steadily, like a storm drifting away, until all that's left is damp pavement and debris you didn't realize had blown into your yard. My life, for the first time in nearly a year, felt mine. The absence of that monthly $2,200 was like untying a weight from my ankle. Suddenly, my savings began climbing in satisfying, visible increments. My spreadsheet, once groaning under Dylan's needs, looked healthier than it had in years. By mid-month, I had nearly $8,000 tucked away. Money I could use, money I could feel proud of again. And for the first time in a decade, I started planning a trip I'd always wanted to take. A spring visit to Japan, cherry blossoms and quiet shrines, and food that didn't require being photographed for engagement. Something gentle, something real. 3 weeks after Dylan and I split for good, I met someone, completely unplanned. I was at a small coffee shop downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu smudged from too much enthusiasm. My usual spot was taken, so I shared a small high-top table with a stranger grading papers. We chatted, laughed. Somehow an hour passed. His name was Ethan Ward, 31, a middle school history teacher. Owned his own tiny apartment, paid all his bills on time. Didn't even have Instagram, said it fried his brain, and he preferred the kind of life that didn't require digital applause. Our first date was a walk along the river. Our second date was a hole-in-the-wall burger place where grease stained the paper wrappers and everything tasted perfect. Our third date ended with him saying, "That might have been the best night I've had in years." Total cost $40. With Dylan, $40 wouldn't have covered the appetizer. With Ethan, it bought 3 hours of conversation, 2 shared milkshakes, and a warmth in my chest I couldn't spreadsheet even if I tried. He didn't need expensive lighting to look real. Meanwhile, Dylan's downfall continued. Not as a collapse, but as a slow unraveling. Because stability wasn't what he wanted, image was. And image is a fragile thing. I heard updates through the grapevine, mostly through Gabe, who couldn't resist detective work in other people's chaos. After the lease modification went through, Dylan couldn't qualify on his own. His savings were nearly gone. His income had tanked from lost sponsorships, and followers were dropping faster than he could post tearful apology reels. He ended up moving out of the apartment I once paid for, breaking his lease early, incurring fees he blamed on haters. He moved into an influencer friend's spare bedroom, a place with peeling wallpaper and a view of a brick wall he tried to pass off as minimalist urban chic. His content shifted overnight. Gone were the rooftop cocktails and designer brands he used to brag about. Now his feed was, Day 2 of my minimalism journey. Healing from toxic financial dynamics. Choosing myself in 2025. The comments were mixed. Isn't this the guy whose girlfriend paid his rent? Sir, you are the toxic dynamic. Own your mistakes first. When he deleted those comments, screenshots circulated anyway. You can't outrun a reputation you built yourself. One afternoon at the gym, I ran into Lena, one of Dylan's longtime friends who had previously texted me paragraphs about how petty I was. She spotted me while we were both on treadmills. For a moment, she looked sheepish. "Marissa," she said, pulling out an earbud. Hey. Hey, I said cautiously. She bit her lip. "I owe you an apology." I blinked. That was unexpected. She continued. "I didn't know the full story. I only saw Dylan's version. But after everything went online, the screenshots, the videos, I realized what actually happened. You really did help him. Like, a lot." She shook her head. "And he just threw it in your face for content. That was messed up. I'm really sorry I judged you without facts." I nodded. "Thank you." "Seriously," she added, adjusting her ponytail, "you dodged a bullet. He's always been like that. Before social media, after social media, uses people until something better comes along. I just didn't see it until now." Her words weren't a surprise, just confirmation of what I already knew. A week later, Dylan sent an email, a long one, 3 paragraphs, apologizing, explaining, promising he was in therapy now and working on his materialism addiction, saying he realized how good he had it with me, saying he was ready to rebuild. I didn't open it twice. I moved it to trash. Closure doesn't always require a conversation. Sometimes it's just a quiet decision not to answer the door when the past knocks. The apartment Dylan once posed in got a new tenant. The landlord emailed me a final statement confirming my name had been removed, my credit untouched, my chapter officially closed. And somehow that one PDF felt more liberating than any breakup speech I ever could have given. Last night, Ethan and I were walking hand in hand through the winter market, bundled in scarves, sipping hot chocolate. He asked, casual and sweet, "So, next week is our 1-month thing. Got any ideas?" I thought about it. About the tiny diner with the sticky tables and the neon sign that flickered even on good days. The place Dylan mocked on his live stream. The place I loved. "How about the diner I mentioned before?" I said. "The one with the strawberry pie?" Ethan squeezed my hand. "That sounds perfect. Not aesthetic, not elevated, not aspirational, just perfect." As we walked under the string lights, warm air puffing between us, I realized something. Cheap isn't the opposite of valuable. Quiet isn't the opposite of meaningful. And love isn't something you perform for strangers. It's something you build with someone who shows up, with honesty, with kindness, with both feet on the ground. Someone who thinks a $12 diner meal is romantic because you're there, not because the lighting hits at the right angle. I learned the hard way that generosity without boundaries attracts people who mistake support for surrender. So I made a new rule for my life. If someone can't respect you while you're helping them, they don't deserve your help. Period. And this time, for the first time in a long time, I knew. I would never let anyone turn my kindness into their content again.